Okay, hi everyone. I'm Roger Black, former British 400-meter runner, Olympic silver medalist in 1996 in Atlanta. That would arguably be my greatest ever achievement, coming second behind the great man Michael Johnson, so that was okay. And then two-time world champion in the 4x400-meter relay, once in 1991 where we crossed the line first, and once in 1997 when we crossed the line second, but then it found out that a couple of Americans had cheated, so we retrospectively got the gold medal for that. But yeah, loved my career, loved being an athlete. Very grateful to have been given a modicum of talent to give me a shot at being a full-time athlete and go to the Olympic Games. But sitting here now at 56 with some questions in front of me that have been sent in. So I will do my best to answer the questions that have been sent in. So the first one says, if I could go back in an athletics time machine to any point in my career, what would it be? Blimey, I should have prepared for this. I've only just seen these questions. For me, what would it be? What would it be? It would probably be, if I could go back for a moment, it would have. Oh, it's always difficult for me this, because I have two highlights from my career, and they're very clear, and there's not a lot between them, and it's very hard to say which one was greater. One was winning the silver medal in Atlanta in '96, you know, and to go back to standing on the Olympic rostrum as a 30-year-old athlete who had so many injuries and could easily not have been there, but to sort of stand there and have that feeling of completeness, just knowing that I achieved my dream, my goal, and it's a wonderful feeling, and knowing that no matter what happened, that nothing would surpass this moment. To go back there for a moment, to stand there with Michael and Davis Kamoga, yeah, that would be cool. But I have to say, if I really had to go back to a moment, it would probably have to be doing the lap of honour with Chris Akabusi, John Regis, and Derek Redmond after winning the relay in 1991 in Tokyo. Just, I don't think I've ever been more so excited just to have done that amazing thing with those three guys who were friends of mine. And that lap of honour, I think we laughed and smiled on that lap of honour more than I've ever done before in my life. So it would probably have to be the lap of honour with Derek, John and Chris in '91. Just to go back there for a moment and to experience that would be fantastic. So I think it's just that one. Second question, it says that I came very close. You came very close to the European 400-meter record. That's true. Why do you think it still stands after so long? Well, the European 400-meter record, I believe, is 44.33 seconds. It was set in 1987 by a great rival of mine called Thomas Schönleber from East Germany, who never beat me, by the way. Thomas never beat me. I only ran against him, I think, 3 or 4 times, but he never beat me. I beat him in '86 to win the European Championships, and I beat him in 1990 to win the European Championships. He came second on both occasions. But in 1987, he became world champion and European record of 33. Why has it stood so long? I'm surprised it stood so long. A few people have had a nibble at it, including myself, you and Thomas, Derek Redmond, and most recently, Matthew Hudson-Smith. I thought Matthew would break it this year, and I think he will break it if he stays healthy. I guess it stood so long because it's a good record, but I think it's time for Europeans to go under 44 seconds. I think with just evolution and maybe the spikes and whatever, and just the advances in technology, I think it's time that record went, and I would predict that it will go within the next year. And I think it will be Matthew Hudson-Smith if he stays healthy. So that's why. But I guess the reason it stood is it's a good record. Next question. What was my longest and preferred training session? So what were my longest session and my preferred training session? Well, the longest training sessions were always in the winter. We were quite old school back in the day. Myself, Chris Akabusi, Todd Bennett, a whole host of athletes down in Southampton in the early days, and we would have long Sunday sessions, and they were long, running up and down sand dunes, running along beaches under the guidance of Mike Smith in all sorts of weather, and they were definitely the longest. You know, the Sunday morning sessions were sort of a good 2 hours, and you get in the car and you drive back hoping for a a Sunday roast at home if I was living with my parents back then. But yeah, they were definitely the longest ones. That's where we put the real hard work in. The preferred session for me, my preferred sessions were the ones that I'm not saying I enjoyed them, but the ones that I preferred were the ones that you knew were the ones that mattered. You know, you can train loads and loads and loads, but there are some key sessions as a 400-meter runner, and you knew when they were coming up, and you were always nervous that the day leading up to it, or certainly the morning ready for that session. It would be maybe 2 or 3 runs over 500 meters. Never enjoyed that, but I knew it was important. But I think the big one, and the one that Chris and I marked where we were on, would be a session of 4 times 300-meter runs. Invariably, we'd be out in California, warm weather training, getting ready for the season. 4 runs over 300 meters, 10 minutes recovery, but honest running. I would lead one, he would lead one, I would lead one, he would lead one. First one feels great. Your 10 minutes recovery is fine. The second one felt pretty good as well. And you're pushing, you're running at sort of 90, 95%. But you cross the line after the second one, you can start to feel it. And that 10-minute recovery seems a bit shorter. The third one was key, because the third one you have a choice, because you know you've got one more to go. So the third one was when you go to the line knowing, am I going to be honest? And if you're honest, you cross the line after the third one and you're in trouble. And you know you've got 10 minutes and that flies by. And then after those 10 minutes, you go to the line. Some people have dropped off, some people have given up. But Chris and I would always go to that line. Whoever it was sometimes I'd be in front, sometimes he would be. And you just knew that it was 300 meters of finding out what you had left in the tank and were you prepared to commit. And crossing that line exhausted, trying not to collapse on the floor, trying not to be sick, knowing that your body's just going to take ages to recover, but knowing that this was the session that would make you as a 400-meter runner. So 4 by 300s with 10 minutes recovery would be not my preferred session, but certainly the one that I think if you ask Chris the same question, he would answer it the same way. Next question. Why was my nickname Bambi? Now, I never called myself Bambi. It was actually Chris Akabusi who called me Bambi. It was in about I'd sort of come on the scene. We were starting to get high profile, and the Daily Mail colour supplement, I think this is 1986, maybe after me winning the Commonwealth and Europeans. The Daily Mail did a big colour supplement on myself and Chris and our relationship. And they were at Chris's house and interviewing us. And Chris was describing how I used to run in those days. I would just go flat out and hang on. And invariably, with the last 20, 30, 40 meters, my legs would go to jelly and I'd wobble around like the image of Bambi in the film Bambi, when Bambi's sort of trying to take his or her first steps. Well, Bambi's his or her first steps. And it was Chris Akabusi who actually gave that demonstration and called me Bambi. And the journalist picked that up then, I think. And I was known as Bambi ever since. He also, in the same interview, called me Sex on Legs, and that stuck as well. So that wasn't a bad nickname to have. But yeah, thanks for remembering, whoever asked that question. Next question was, did I ever think that I had a chance against Michael Johnson? And if not, what kept me motivated? And how did the measure of success change for me? That is a fabulous question. It underpins everything for me. Michael Johnson came along in 1991 on the scene as a 200-meter runner, and then started to take on the 400 meters around 1992, I believe, but didn't run it in Barcelona. Got food poisoning in Barcelona as well, so didn't do well in Barcelona. But from I think 93 onwards, he was just so dominant. So when we came to Atlanta in 96, I'd raced Michael a lot. We were definitely, I'd say we were friends, but we had great respect for each other. He actually had more respect for me than I ever knew, actually. And as we've become friends, that's fantastic. But going into the Olympics in 96, you have a choice. You can go to race other people and try and win the race. Or, and I think most people would agree with this, you recognize at that level, everyone's so good that all you can really do is focus on running your perfect race. And if you do that in the Olympic final, then you're going to do okay. You don't know where you're going to come, but all you can control is that. Now, that's easier said than done in the Olympic final. And I quite famously said that going into the Olympics that we were running for second place. What I never said was is that I couldn't win the Olympic gold medal. But you have to have that honest conversation with yourself. And what I knew is that on his day, Michael was better than me, and he was better than everybody. But he could make a mistake and he could mess up. So all I could control was how I ran. So absolutely, I went to the line in the Olympics just totally to run my best race. And it wasn't thinking I would come second. I've had to bet on it I would have come second. And I could easily have come fourth, by the way. So it wasn't just about Michael. But yeah, it was the right mentality, you know. And at that level, I think everyone buys into that. If I'd run Michael's race, I would never have won an Olympic medal, and would have regretted it for the rest of my life. So the question was, did I think I had a chance against Michael? You've always got a chance in a race because people can make mistakes and people can get injured and anything can happen. But you have to control the controllables. And that's really what kept me motivated. And for me, success was walking off the track knowing that I'd run the best I could. And fortunately, in my case, that was reflected by a silver medal. And I think at the top level, everyone knows that. Or that's all you can do. So long answer to a question. Next question. What was my favorite track to train and compete at? To train at, really, Chris and I and the group, and when Chris retired, I carried on doing it. And Daley Thompson and Edwin Moses, training down in UC Irvine or Long Beach in California was just amazing. It's just amazing to go out there, look around. Daley was there, and Ed Moses was there, and myself and Chris and Sven Nylander from Sweden, John Ridgen, and John Regis would sometimes come later on, and Derek Redmond and Phil Brown would come and visit. They were happy days. They really were happy days. And I just loved training in California. And the favorite track for me to compete at is probably Tokyo. I loved Tokyo, and I would always go to Tokyo at the end. It was always the last meeting of the season, and I would always go and run that meeting. Just like to be around the Japanese culture and the sushi and whatever. So I liked Tokyo. In the UK, I never ran well. I don't think I ran well at Crystal Palace. Broke the British record in Birmingham. That was brilliant. And always ran quite well in Sheffield. So I think in the UK, my favourite track was arguably Birmingham, and globally, probably Tokyo. Next question is, if I had avoided injury throughout my career, just how fast do I think I might have been able to run the 400 metres? Well, ifs, maybes, buts. I mean, I had 5 operations, missed a year with glandular fever, broken foot. It was like many athletes, it was one long, hard struggle. Would I have run faster if I hadn't had the injuries? Absolutely, I would have run faster. If you're healthy, you're going to do okay. But very few people have a career of health. And because I came into the sport really late, about 18, as a sort of rugby player, my body was all over the place. And so it couldn't sustain that training that I went through for the first 2 years and broke down. But yeah, I'm sure I would have run faster. I think everyone would run faster without being injured. Would have I achieved more? I don't think so. I still don't know if I would have beaten Michael in Atlanta, because I think he ran 43.4. I don't know if I had that in me. I'd love to have run under 44 seconds, but it's not a regret, because I can't really have a regret. But I definitely think I would have run faster. Next question. Do you feel enough has been done in Britain to utilise the experience of former athletes to help the next generation? I don't think so. I don't think so. It baffles me. It baffles Chris. I think it baffles Daley. I can't speak for others, but success leaves clues in all walks of life. And when Chris and I started out on our journey, we went and sat with David Henry. We went and sat with Seb Coe. We were very fortunate to be invited by Daley to train with him in America, and I would pick his brain the whole time, because Edwin Moses, I would pick his brain the whole time. Success leaves clues. And you just have to get little bits from people. And I've never understood why former athletes, whether it's me or Chris or Ewan Thomas or anyone, or Derek Redmond, or in the 400 meter space, but any former athlete, I think will always be happy to just tell the young up and coming athletes what they experienced, and just to sit and listen to people and know that we're different, but I might pick up something from somebody, I think is really important. And I've never understood why British athletics just don't structure that into becoming a young athlete, because I know all my former athlete friends would happily just sit and talk. Steve Backley certainly would, and has done, but not as much as he should have done. And we're not talking about getting athletes in to become coaches. I'm not a coach. I would never be a coach. And not even to be a specific mentor, but just to share your experiences. Because as a young athlete, you can absorb so much from other people. And if you just get one thing that resonates and you do differently, and you apply that to your training, you could get an improvement. So yeah, it just seemed obvious. Success leaves clues, and therefore athletes shouldn't be scared to ask. Just ask questions, because I think most people are quite happy to give the answers, especially when you're old and you can't run. So why not? So yes, it's a strange one. So no, enough hasn't been done. What outside of your athletics career has been your biggest challenge? It says that you did Strictly, but what about I'm a Celeb? I've never been asked to do I'm a Celeb, so I can't answer that. I did do Strictly, series 2. Great fun. Did it with Denise Lewis. Just brilliant. I'll never forget walking. We were we got through to where did they do the dancing? It'll come to me in a minute. We got through to Blackpool. And we were in a sort of lunch break, and we were walking down the street in Blackpool, and these kids came towards us. And as they walked past us, I remember them going, "Oh, look, it's those 2 dancers." And I looked at Denise and said, "There you go. You know, it doesn't matter what we used to do on the track, but this is what we're known for at the moment." It was brilliant. Yes, it was scary, because as an athlete, you're doing something that you know you're good at. When you take on a new challenge like dancing, which I was rubbish at, it's scary. But the truth is, we love a challenge, and I think it's just about taking on new challenges. So MasterChef, that was scary. I loved that, and I'm a sucker for that sort of stuff. So I tend to say yes to things. So yeah, but people always say, you know, what does it compare like being in the Olympic final? Nothing compares to the pressure of the Olympic final, honestly, because the stakes in the Olympic final are so high. Getting knocked out Strictly is not the end of the world. Messing up an Olympic final, knowing that you've got 4 years to wait, is tough. So you'll always see athletes being asked that question, whatever they're doing. You know, oh, what is it? What's this? How does this compare to running at the Olympics? It doesn't compare, because if any of this compares to running at the Olympics, then you weren't running the Olympics properly. So, but good, nice to be asked, and I enjoy them. Next question: if you could pick any athletes, who would make up your dream 4x400 meter relay team? You cannot ask me that question. I've only just seen these questions, so if I'd had time to sleep on this, I could have probably thought about it. So let's go through it. In the UK, let's just do a UK team. In a world team, I mean, you know, that's obviously you go Michael Johnson, you go. I wouldn't have made the 4, so you go Michael Johnson, you go Wade van Niekerk, probably. Yeah, they're best, of course. You look at Jeremy Warriner. You can put a whole host of people in the world team. So let's not bother with the world team. But the best, what British dream team would I do? This is a dangerous question for me to answer, because, you know, I'm very fortunate that I've run through the 3 eras. So when I came into the sport, I came at the back end of the Todd Bennett, Gary Cook, Phil Brown era. So I was part of that. And then they sort of all retired, and Chris Akabusi. And then we had the era of myself, Chris Akabusi, Derek Redmond, John Regis, Brian Whittle. I'm missing out. I'm going to miss out people. And then it moved into the next era, which was when David Grindley came along, when then Ewan Thomas came along, and Mark Richardson came along, and Jamie Bolge came along. And so those are the 3 eras, and I guess I'm the constant throughout all of them, because I was in all those 3 eras. So I've run with them all, and I've run with all, you know, the great era of 400 meter running, because since then we've had some good athletes, whether it's Martin Rooney or now Matthew Hudson-Smith, but we've never had a group. We've never had a group of people who can break 45 seconds. Dwayne Ledejo, left him out, sorry. You know, it was amazing. And so I've got to pick 3 other guys to run with out of that whole host of great British 400 meter runners. And it's really tough, because who do you pick and where do you put them? You know, where do I go? So it's so hard. So you could put any of them together and you've got a great team. But I'm sitting on the fence. So I have to put Chris Akabusi in my team because he would never forgive me. But maybe that's controversial because you would say he wasn't the fastest, but you have to have him in your team. It's really hard for me because the British record team is me, Ewan Thomas, Mark Richardson, and Jamie Bulge. We won the silver medal in Atlanta. We still hold the British record. I'm actually catching up with them for a beer next week. But the most famous team is myself, Chris Akabusi, John Regis, and Derek Redmond. And it's hard not to pick that team just because of the history. So nothing against Ewan and Mark, who were faster, and Jamie. But it's hard to not go with those guys because it was a moment in history, it was a moment in time. But as I say, you could merge those teams together, run them in any order, and you'd have a fantastic relay team. You know, and Todd Bennett was an amazing relay runner, and Gary Cook was steady, and Phil Brown, of course, on the last leg. You know, the man who individually never quite fulfilled his potential, but put a baton in his hand and put him on the last leg. He'll run anyone down. So it's really, really hard. But maybe if the question was, you have to pick one team that you've run in, and that's the team. Rather than merging the teams together, it would have to be the relay team in '91 winning the World Championships. Sorry, Ewan. Sorry, Mark. Sorry, Jamie. Sorry, Phil. Sorry, Todd. Bless you, Todd. But that would be my team. So the final question. What advice do I have for young 400-meter runners? Yeah, my daughter's a 400-meter runner now. She's running in France, and she's only taken up the sport, running really well. I don't give her lots of advice, and I chat to a few athletes who ask for some advice. So what advice would I give them? I think it's really simple, actually. I think, recognize the talent you've been given and be grateful for that talent, because a lot of people can't even run and find it hard to run. And just to have the talent to maybe be an international athlete, just don't take that for granted. The next bit of advice would be, and I get a lot of parents asking me, what, my kid's really talented, how do they get to the next level? What should they be doing? And I always come back to the same answer, which is, if you want to run fast, then you've just got to run with fast people. And that may sound really simple, but I would not be sitting here today if I had not joined a training group and chased Chris Akabusi and Todd Bennett up a hill every evening, and then eventually catch them. If you want to run fast, go and run with fast people. So yes, have a great coach. Coaches are really, of course, coaches are important, but I still think the most important thing is to have someone fast to run with. So in many ways, that's an advantage if you're a female athlete, because you can always find, male athletes that you aren't going to be international level, but they're going to still be faster than you. But it's quite hard as a male athlete to find faster athletes to run with if you're good. So I was fortunate that I always had fast people to run with. So go and find a group, run with fast people, stay healthy. If you're not healthy, it's a tough business to be in. Respect your body, rest, and listen to your body. Listen to your coach, have a plan, have a dream, and then, learn the skill of visualization. That was a massive, massive thing for me. And the corny thing is to sort of say, enjoy it. And yes, enjoy it. But at the highest level, sometimes it's hard to enjoy it. So sometimes remind yourself that you're enjoying it, and accept that it's not going to be easy. I mean, I remember when I was injured, Daley Thompson, I was moaning to Daley in the car he was driving me, and I'll never forget what he said to me, because I'd broken my foot. I said, this is really tough. And I remember exactly what he said to me. He said, Roger, if this was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I've never forgotten that. So my advice would be, if you're a young, talented athlete and you want to, set dreams and goals and compete and commit, don't expect it to be easy, because it isn't easy and it shouldn't be easy. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy it, but you've got to make it happen. So all those things are all part of the advice I would give. But I think if I had to give one piece of advice to anybody, is that if you want to run fast, then go and run with fast people. I think that would be it. So there you go. Long answers to short questions, but I hope that was of interest, especially if you're an up-and-coming sprinter, or particularly a 400-meter runner. And happy to answer those questions.